Hello everyone, my name is Lilly and today I want to speak about nature versus nurture and how the environments we grow up in can shape the people we become. People often ask whether we are defined by our genetics, our nature, or by our experiences, our nurture. Are we born a certain way, destined to follow a path, or are we shaped by the love, safety, and support around us? I've lived on the south side of Brisbane and was raised by my single mother and also my grandmother from the age of 5. I grew up without my dad due to unsafe circumstances involving abuse towards my mum and substance use. As a child of an addict, I am 4 times more likely to become an alcoholic. 50% of youths in justice systems have at least one parent who have been previously in prison. That's my nature. I am over twice as likely to experience abuse in my future relationships simply because I am a witness to abuse. People with separated parents have been found to be twice as likely to drop out of school compared to peers in 2 parents' families. Those were some of my nurtures, and those experiences have deeply influenced how I see the world and how strongly I believe in the power of nurture. For me, safety isn't just a concept, it's the foundation of who a young person becomes. From a very young age, I saw how much environment matters. If I had stayed in that unsafe situation, I know my life could have unfolded very differently. I could have internalized fear, I could have learned instability instead of security, but instead, my mum made the decision to fight for a safer life for me. She worked tireless to create a stable home, working endless hours to provide for me. While she did that, my grandmother stepped in as my main carer, providing constant reassurance, warmth, and love. Between them, I've always had at least one caretaker to feel supported and protected by. This, unfortunately, isn't necessarily the same case for my half-siblings from my father. My eldest brother, a kind and now family-driven man, didn't have the same opportunities I have had growing up. Even though he didn't see my father for the first couple years of his life, he didn't have a majorly present mother either. He moved out at a young age and in turn resorted to selling weed to provide for himself. To get food on his plate, clothes on his back, a roof over his head, the necessities. Eventually, this slippery slope led him to jail, just like my father. Because he lacked that nurture from his parents, he fell back onto the nature. Fortunately, now he has changed his life and has a stable job with his partner and 3 kids. But I sometimes sit and wonder what my life would be like if my mum hadn't persisted, if my grandma wasn't there to look after me whilst my mum worked. This October, I will be the first kid on my dad's side to graduate high school on time. And although all my older siblings have come so incredibly far, I must admit I feel grateful to be raised in the households I have, with the absence of my father. Of course, there were moments where my family looked different from others, especially on days like Father's Days. But I was never made to feel less than, I was never made to feel alone. I remade crafts to be fit for my mum or my grandma, buying gifts at the little shops for my sister's partners, scribbled out father and writing whoever I saw fit. That taught me something powerful. Family isn't about structure. It's about consistency, it's about love, it's about showing up. That's nurture. In 2022, when my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer, our stability was tested again. Without my grandmother, I don't know how we would have coped. That time showed me how fragile security can be and how vital strong networks are. No one thrives alone. Community shapes outcomes. Growing up around abuse, even when it wasn't directed at me, still affected my sense of safety. It influenced how I processed conflict, how I responded to stress, and how I viewed relationships. But what stayed with me the most wasn't fear. It was my mum's determination. Watching her find courage to leave, fight for our family in court, and rebuild our lives. And although I may remember the screams and dripping blood, most of all, I remember my mother's love. She showed me that while we cannot control where we start, we can influence the environment we create moving forward, and in turn shape our future. That's why I believe nurture has incredible power. Young people are not defined by the worst things they have experienced. They're not defined by their parents' mistakes. They are shaped by the environment that engulfs them, by whether they feel valued, loved, and safe. When young people don't feel safe, it's harder to concentrate at school. It's harder to build confidence. It's harder to dream about the future when you can barely understand the times of current. Fear limits growth. Stability expands it. My life could have been shaped by instability. Instead, it was shaped by resilience, love, and support. That difference wasn't in my DNA. It was in my environment. It was in my single mother and my caring grandmother. Nature may give us a starting point, but nurture writes much of the story. And my lived experience has shown me this. When young people feel protected, supported, and valued, they don't just survive, they thrive. This is why I find it incredibly important that we lend a hand to all single parents. As single parent households in Australia represent approximately 15 to 16% of families. That's 1.1 to 1.2 million one-parent families identified as of 2023 to 2025. This doesn't mean that we only help the ones that look like they need it, or the ones that are currently in poverty, but rather all single parents, so we can not only help, but also prevent. Prevent the expected, the dreaded, the unwanted. 80% of these households are led by mothers, just like my own. If we help before the inevitable, maybe we can make it evitable. Thank you.